Yes.
We got you.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the October general meeting, the SLSRC meeting. I'm Kyle, AA0Z, current president of the club. Everyone, give me a 5-9 if I'm good on the stream here with my audio. Let me know if everyone can hear me. Hope you and your family are safe. Remind everyone to wear a mask when you're out in public, and hope to slow the spread of the virus. So the YouTube chat, I see some people in the YouTube chat. You must have a Google account and a YouTube account to chat in the chat. I'm sure that everyone has probably figured that out if they're already in the chat. So if you have any questions or comments, put them in the chat. And if you're not able to send a chat, please contact us at info@slsrc.org. That's our email address. And you can get to that from the website. A lot of 5-9s. 5-9s across the board, even a 599. I'm not really sure of how I'm sending code, but maybe you're hearing code in your head, Bill Carroll. Again, use the chat to post a message. If you want to put your call sign there, it'll be good to associate names with call signs. And then, yeah. More announcements. There's a subscribe button down there, down here, somewhere. If you hit that subscribe button, also give a like to the channel, a thumbs up. That helps promote the channel. So give us a subscribe and a like. General member introductions in the chat. So go ahead and just put your name and your call sign, and in honor of CQ Worldwide, we are going to do, everyone put their name, their call sign, and the last country, the last DXCC entity you just worked, or the last one you worked, could have been 20 years ago. Go ahead and put your name, your call sign, and the last DXCC entity you worked, and we'll capture all that. Kevin is capturing the attendance, so that'll be good to make sure that he's got everyone accounted for. While people are doing that, is there any new techs or upgrades that have been completed in the last couple of weeks or the last month? I don't know of any, but if you have upgraded, if you've gotten your license or have upgraded, please let us know. Bill has worked England. That's cool. Larry worked the Ukraine. Very cool. Also, do we have anybody Argentina? Nice. Have anybody new in the chat? Please let us know if you're new. We like to reach out to new members and new hams to make sure that they're getting everything that they need. All right, moving on here. Got some silent keys, 2 silent keys. Wayne Shirt, I believe, W0CLK. He was part of the Jefferson County Radio Club. He is a silent key. And Mike Hogan, W0MLH, also part of the Jefferson Radio Club. I did not know any are those individuals, but maybe some of you have. They were silent keys. I think some of the had some complications because of the virus, and we lost those 2 people. Never good to add silent keys to the list here. Is there any more silent keys that we need to identify from the or in the chat? Go ahead and put those in the chat. Tony Miller worked the Bahamas. Christian worked England. Kevin worked Venezuela. Phil, Bosnia and Herzegovina. Very cool. Bill, Italy. All right, I'm not seeing any more silent keys, so we're gonna move on. So we have a special treat tonight. We have got some ARRL candidates for the vice director position for the Midwest. We have Lloyd Colston, who's going to talk first. He is KC5 FM, and Dave Proper, K2DP. So I'm going to bring on Lloyd Colston, KC5 FM. He's a past Oklahoma section manager. Let me get this started here. And we're going to have these guys just have the floor for 5 minutes, and they can tell you about their candidacy and what they're all about. So let me get this. Let me admit Lloyd here. And hang on, Lloyd. You bring your desktop audio up. Let me close this. Let me come back over to the right screen. Let me maximize this guy. And let me get you a lower third. There you go. All right. Lloyd, KC5 FM, past Oklahoma section manager. The floor is yours to about, for 5 minutes, to about, let's see how many people are. We got about 52 people streaming this on our SLSRC website. So the floor is yours for 5 minutes. Welcome.
And thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be in the meeting with you tonight. COVID has certainly taken a number on ham radio activities across the fruited plain, and I applaud this group for having their meetings like this so that the whole world potentially can participate. I'm Lloyd Colston. I'm KC5 FM. Remember these contact information: 234-564-ARRL. That's 234-564-ARRL is a phone number. Call or text, and you can talk to me. KC5FM, my call sign, kc5fm.blogspot.com. That's my blog, and I've been talking about this campaign for well over a month. You can find out why I'm running, what interests me in ham radio, and what are some of the issues that I've already identified. And of course, my email address is kc5fm@arrl.org or .net. Now, what issues have I uncovered? The most pressing for you, and the the comment period is currently open for the $50 increase in your license. So go now to the FCC website and make your comments. I already have. I think $50 is too much too fast, and I would agree with perhaps a lower fee, but certainly not $50. Maybe $1 a year, $10, not 50. Other issues: we've already lost the microwave channel. There's another one proposed to be eliminated next year. So be aware that the FCC, through mandates of Congress, has trying to take away frequencies that at least are ours on a shared basis. So think about this: who's going to protect your rights before the FCC and before Congress? The American Radio Relay League. On the international front, Brazil has proposed to eliminate testing altogether. What does that mean to international communications? If a Brazilian ham cannot take a test, how do they get licensed? If they don't have a license, how can they operate? The DXCC alone would be impacted by that decision. Today's tweet: New Zealand has they are eliminating 60-meter channels. There's two. They were shared with the military, and the military didn't want to give them up. So 60 meters in New Zealand's gone away. So those are international things. The American Radio Relay League is the only organization in the United States that has the table seated at the International Amateur Radio Union. And the IRU met late last year, and they will continue to meet virtually until COVID goes away. Membership. I cannot talk without addressing membership. We have rising numbers of amateur radio licenses in the United States. We have a stagnant league membership. Please, if you're not a member, join the league. Your dues pay for all the benefits that you have, all the benefits, including the insurance program, including the representation before Congress, including representation at the FCC. Your league dollars are well spent in that area. However, I come from a business background.
1 minute.
I have a business background and a government background and financial background. I will tell you, if we don't get the league membership up, your dues will not only stay the same, but the option is going to be cutting benefits or raising dues. And I don't want to raise dues, but we have to pay for benefits somehow. Thank you for your time. And I will be standing by for questions at the phone or email. Thank you.
Thank you, Lloyd. Appreciate it. All right, let me let's see if I can. Here we go. Let me figure out how to get back into the chat here. How do I get back?
Can I hang up now?
Yeah, hang on.
Okay.
All right. Yep, I'm going to put you back in the waiting room, Lloyd. Thank you for your comment or your 5 minutes. And if anybody has any questions, kc5fm@arrl.org, right? Or .net.
Either one.
Either one. kc5fm@arrl.org or .net. Email Lloyd with your questions or your comments. Very good. Thank you, Lloyd.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. All right. I'll see you later.
Be blessed.
All right. Bye-bye. All right. Next person here. Let me bring in Dave proper. Hello, Dave.
Yep, I'm here.
Very good. All right. Dave Proper, K0DAS. He's a current assistant director on the ARRL board right now and running for vice director position, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And the floor is yours for 5 minutes. Go.
Okay. Thank you, Kyle. Well, good evening to Kyle, and good evening to the officers and board members of SLSRC, the committee chairpersons and club members, and of course to your special guest speaker, Rod Blocksome, K0DAS, who is the current director of the ARRL Midwest Division. Thank you for the opportunity to join you for this evening's meeting, and I appreciate the time that you're allocating to me. I probably know many of you, having lived here in the St. Louis area for just coming up on 26 years now in January, and thought I would take a moment to introduce myself to you for those of you that may not know me. I'm sure I've spoken to many of you on the local repeaters here over the years. I've been a licensed amateur radio operator for over 55 years and an ARRL member for that entire time period. And as you may have learned, I just recently retired from the Boeing company after 34 years with them, and many other years before that with other electronics manufacturing companies in the military and commercial marketplaces. But I currently serve you, as Kyle mentioned, as the ARRL Assistant Director, one of the ARRL Assistant Directors for the Midwest Division, and I've been working closely for the last 10 years with both Rod, K0DAS, and before Rod, Cliff Aarons, K0CA, who was your division director. So I recently retired from Boeing, as I said, and at Boeing I held management and technical leadership positions for the development of major avionics subsystems. Basically, for those of you that are familiar with avionics, radar and electronic warfare. And we've been here in St. Louis, as I said, since 1995. And McDonnell Douglas brought me up here in January of 95. And we've been here for coming up, as I said, on just 26 years in January. I'm an active member and currently hold leadership positions with both the Boeing Employees Amateur Radio Society and the Mississippi Valley DX Contest Club, also QCWA. And I'm proud to say now also SLSRC as of this morning. And I really want to thank Bill, because I believe Bill is the guy that keeps sending out those emails to remind people to renew their membership. And I was a member years ago, but frankly, with my travel and responsibilities for work, I never really had time to get to your meetings. So I did let my membership lapse, but I have renewed it. And so we're back on board. So we have many challenges facing us in amateur radio today. Key among those is retaining our privileges and retaining the frequency spectrum that we currently have. Some of you may have read that recently, during the last month, we lost the 3 gigahertz frequency spectrum. And that's particularly important for the mesh network called ARVN, which is the amateur radio high-speed mesh network or data network. And it's in very, very high use out on the West Coast particularly, and was used particularly for communications during the fires that they had up and down the West Coast. So this is not good. And so one of the things that we need to do, if you're not an ARRL member today, you should renew your membership or join ARRL, because they are the organization that represents you in front of the FCC and Congress. And it's extremely important that we retain our frequency spectrum. So I'm getting a 2 or a V, I'm not sure.
2 minutes,
Okay.
2 minutes left.
Is there an opportunity to take questions from your membership?
No, they will email you at an email address that you specify.
Okay, fine. That's great. Yes, I'd love to talk to anybody that has any questions about amateur radio and my thoughts on various areas. I have been engaged in amateur radio across the entire spectrum, from contesting to DXing to 6 meters to rag chewing to AM rag chewing and boat anchor equipment restoration, VHF, public service, you name it. I probably have been engaged in it over the 55 years and haven't lost interest in the hobby. So if you'd like to contact me, please give me a call at my cell phone number, 314-225-5167, or my email address, which is K2DeltaPapa, K2DP@charter.net, or you can look me up on QRZ.com and take a look at my bio there, and the email address is there as well. So Kyle, thank you very much. I really appreciate your time, and I'm looking forward to hearing Rod speak this evening, because I have not heard his presentation before.
Very good. Thank
73.
you. 73. Now, what you can do is, if you want to hang out in the chat and people want to put questions in the YouTube chat, they're more than welcome to answer or ask questions. And if you are hanging around and want to answer them, that's great. But again, give your email address again, k2dp@arrl.net. Is that no? Sorry.
K2, that's okay. K2dp@charter.net.
Charter. K2dp@charter.net. K2dp@charter.net. If you want to ask Dave or send him your thoughts on the vice director position that Art is vacating, right?
Right, that is correct. Art has moved up and been declared the director-elect for the Midwest Division. Rod is retiring at the end of this calendar year. And again, just to emphasize my role and the job, the most important portion of the job of vice director is to represent the membership in the 4 states or 4 sections that make up the Midwest Division.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Kyle. Appreciate you inviting me to the meeting.
Yep. See you later.
Yep.
All right. Very good. Thanks to Lloyd and Dave for 5 minutes of their time. And thanks for the membership for we had requests that they come on. So people who requested that, thank you. So back to the meeting. We've got a couple more announcements here. SLSRC website. If you have not been to our website in a while, Tina does a magnificent job in updating that. So give Tina some claps and some praise in the chat. She is the one that updates it. And any current information, if you want to know what's going on with the club, the website is where to go. So www.slsrc.org is where you want to find all that information. And yeah, go there and check it out. We also have a email list. If you go down on the bottom right-hand corner of the website, you can sign up for our mailing list. It's about 750 people or so strong. We've had some people sign up in the last couple weeks, which is good. And we send out emails probably, I don't know, once a week, once every week and a half on everything that's going on with the club. So join our mailing list. Social media. We've got a Facebook account. We've got a Twitter account. You're watching us on YouTube. So go and like us on Facebook. Go and join our or follow our page, Twitter. We've got a Twitter. If you search St. Louis and Suburban Radio Club and Twitter, I'm sure you'll find it. I don't know the exact link, but it's I'm sure somebody can put the link in the chat maybe. And then YouTube, obviously subscribe and hit that like button down at the bottom. That helps us promote the channel and gets us out to more people. Also, there's an STL Hams on Facebook. If you are going to sell something, you will need some help hanging an antenna, you have a question about a balun or an unun or an antenna, the best place for you to go and get information and ask those types of questions is on the STL Hams group on Facebook. It's a group. You join the group and you're able to post. So we also put our events on STL Hams. So go out there and join that group if you're not a part of it. On to more announcements here. The SLSRC breakfasts have been postponed until we can figure out how to meet safely and jam food into our mouths without spreading the virus. So we have been using them, or we have been meeting virtually, but we had a low turnout, so I think we're going to reevaluate those in the coming months. Gateway Electronics. I was there today. Last day is October 31st. I asked... I forgot the guy's name that is always there. I asked him if he was going to come back leaner, stronger, better, and he said, no, we're done. So I think an era is coming to an end. Gateway Electronics' last day of sales is October 31st. Doug, thank you, Mark. Doug said he is not coming back. So that was as of today, about 3 o'clock. So, end of an era. It's kind of sad. Went and picked up some stuff. Everything is half off until the 31st. So if you can get to Gateway Electronics and pick up some half off stuff, probably be good. Also, anything else from the chat that we have not covered, I will pause here while I get some other things set up. Anything else from the chat? Anything else from the chat? All right, you gotta mute people. Gotta mute. Everyone's got to mute. Anything else from the chat? I gotta. You gotta mute people. Gotta mute. Cliff, you gotta mute.
Oh.
All right. I think I got everything going. It's like SpaceX mission control here. I got 4 screens going, and everything's haywired here. We're trying to launch a satellite here, folks. You can see everything behind the screen here. All right. So we did an announcement. Last thing I want to talk about is. This weekend is CQ Worldwide. If you're into contesting, if you're into DXing, if you're into seeing how far you can get per mile per watt, this is the weekend to do it on single sideband. It is worldwide contest. All of the countries, all of them. Now, a lot of countries are going to be on the air this weekend on 20 meters, on 40 meters, on 80 meters, on all the contest bands. So if you're looking to get some DXCCs and put some more countries in your hat, this is the weekend to do it. Goes for 48 hours and Saturday and Sunday. I will give you a little tip. If you're running 100 watts and you're not getting through the pileup, get on the air on Sunday afternoon. That is the best time to grab those DXCC entities because they are looking for contacts. So your mileage goes a lot farther on Sunday than it does on Saturday morning. I'll tell you that. So just a word to the wise. All right. We got some committee members that we need to bring on here. And let me bring everyone on. Let me get rid of that. All right. I don't have my scene set up correctly. That's disappointing. Hang on. Let me get back. Yep, I don't have them set up. All right. We're just going to wing it here. Paul, do you want to come in and talk about elections?
Sure. Sounds like a wonderful thing.
You're on.
Okay. Thanks. So everyone, as you've probably noted in your emails, I sent out 2 emails referencing the current open nominating time frame right now. SLSRC does have 4 open board positions this year: the president, secretary, board member at large, and new ham board member. All of these are open to any member who wishes to run. The only exception to that, of course, is the new ham board member has to have the requirement of having had their license less than 3 years. And that is a 1-year term. The other roles, the secretary, president, and board member at large, are a 2-year term. We have had a few folks nominate or be nominated or self-nominate. I encourage everyone to do so. The position I'd like to kind of focus on tonight is president. As everyone's probably aware that's been on these calls, Kyle has decided not to rerun again this year. So he is going to remain active with the club, but wants to get a little more time in the actual mode of operating. So that is a very, very critical position to the club. I don't want to joke around and say that it's easy to do. It's not. It is a strong position, but it is a position required to have great leadership. Not sure what happens to the club if we don't get somebody to run for that role. So I encourage you to do a little bit of soul searching and consider what you can bring to the club. We had 2 great introductions there from folks who are putting themselves out on the line for ARRL leadership positions, and I'm asking you to be that person who puts yourself out on the line for the SLSRC. It's a very worthwhile club. We all get many, many, many benefits from it, and I encourage you to consider self-nominating or nominating someone else. If you do nominate someone else, please speak with them before you place their name in nomination, because we certainly will before we accept that nomination. With that, I hope everyone has a great weekend and spend some time on the air this weekend, and look forward to hearing from you. I will probably start reaching out to a few folks because we can't go on without people being nominated for these roles. Appreciate it. Have a great day, everyone. Take care.
Hey, Paul, do you want to do a 2-minute segment on how we're going to do nominations, or how we're going to do elections this year?
Certainly. Okay. Sorry about that. I should have considered that in there. Obviously not being in person makes things a little bit more interesting. So we have researched some software that's available to provide for a standard election format that is anonymous. So what will happen is on the day of the board meeting, or the day of the general meeting, which is the the Friday before Thanksgiving. I don't know the exact date. I forget that off the top of my head.
November 20th.
Thank you, November 20th. We will have presentations by everyone who has not been nominated to give just a minute or two about their background. That evening, you will receive an email that gives you the ballot that has everyone on there. You will have 3 days to respond to that ballot via email, at which time we will have the election closed, and we'll be notifying everyone, all members, via email of who the winners of the election are. You can self-nominate, or anyone can be nominated up until noon on the 20th. We have to close it at noon on the 20th simply to give us time to get everything coordinated, to give that opportunity for anyone to do a brief presentation. So that's the process for it. The software we looked at 3 or 4 different versions of different kinds of software, and it's going to be a very simple process to respond to an email and vote for the candidate of your choice.
Very good. Thank you, Paul.
Take care.
Thanks, Paul. Next, Cliff. I'm going to bring you into the forefront, and floor is yours.
Am I unmuted? Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Good. Paul and I usually have classes during the year, and unfortunately, everybody knows what happened, and we did not have classes. But we are sending out study guides, and here are my high-tech graphics here. Oh, wrong one. Hold on a minute. I got ahead of myself. Licensed study guides. Email education@slsrc.org. That's to me. And we have study guides for technician, general, and extra. And of course, the extra is a new version that went into a new question pool that went into effect July the 1st. So we've been sending out, sometimes 2 or 3 a week. And we'll get into license testing in just a second here. But if you're interested in upgrading from tech to general or general to extra, the study guides are yours. We'll send them to you, education@slsrc.org. And our motto for many years has been, the object is to pass the test you can understand later, because the study guides only cover the possible test questions. You can get an ARRL book, or if you really, depending on how deep you want to get into the explanation, but education@slsrc for the basic study guides. And once you're ready to take the test, license testing, Cliff K0DAS, who's been around for, I think, 20 or 25 years, and has been one of the leading VE teams in the country for many, many years. They're having it twice a month, and I'm not going to give you the information or the dates because it might be subject to change, but their website is cliffkve.com, cliffkve.com, and it has information on what you need to bring, the cost. It has the form you can fill out in advance and get an FRN number, so you'll be ready to go when you get there. And also hamstudy.org, which is obviously a website, and it's sponsored by ICOM. They also have study guides, and they have a list of sessions that are throughout the country. They're the virtual testing sessions, and there's a couple of members, I believe, earlier on with the pandemic that took. I think one of them did not New Orleans, somewhere in Louisiana. Maybe it was New Orleans, and also Los Angeles, and they were very pleased with the online testing. But local testing, cliffkve.com, or online virtual hamstudy.org. And last but not least, and this was, I think, in one of the slides before the meeting, the Back to Basics started in October, and it runs through March, and there is a topic on each one. And October session was how to set up your first VHF, UHF station. And the November one is November the 6th. These are all the first Friday of the month. And Kyle, AA0Z, is going to talk about setting up your first HF station. And I put on their YouTube live. It'll be like this. There will be email the Monday and the Friday of November. So that's November 2nd and November the 6th. There'll be an email list. And Kyle mentioned how to get on the email list if you're not on it. And it'll also be on the website. And there'll be a link, just like there was tonight, to get to connect to this. And that's it, unless anybody has any questions.
Yeah, that's it's going to be like a Zoom, but it's going to be on Google Meet. It's the old Google Hangouts.
Oh, okay. I was thinking that's right. I was thinking we did live YouTube. Never
Yep.
mind.
Okay. Very good.
I
Thanks,
said that,
Cliff.
I said that on purpose to see if you're paying attention. Not.
I was paying attention.
Okay, you were. Thank you.
All right. Thanks,
Everybody-
Cliff. All right, Bill, you are up next.
Okay, so I'm going to give 3 items of information. The first is membership. Currently for 2021, since we just started up in October, or this month for accepting membership for 2021, we now have 60 members. For our net totals, oh, things are running slow now. Net totals, we were running an average of about 31 for the year on a weekly basis. The high number was 53 check-ins. So those are good numbers, but that is for the SLSRC Tuesday night net. It is every Tuesday, except every once in a while a holiday gets in the way. But every Tuesday night at 7:30 p.m. And then we all know that we have Rod Blocksome K0DAS giving the program tonight for the deep ocean search of Amelia Earhart's airplane. Next month, November, 1 week earlier, so pay attention to this. Remember that next month our meeting will be on November 20th. That way we do not get in the way of visiting with your families on Thanksgiving. So November 20th, we are going to have Sterling Mann in SLSRC, who is the new appointed International Amateur Radio Union Region 2 Liaison for Youth. And he's going to give us a presentation. And then finally for December, during our holiday party, which will also be virtual, we've got all sorts of things planned, but one of them is we're going to do an online game. So I invite you on, I believe it's going to be December 11th, to participate in our virtual holiday party. I think you will enjoy what we're doing. The club is trying. We are definitely working on being able to have our club still active during this COVID time. That's why we also need your membership. Your membership dues help keep our repeaters up and running, keep programs like this going. We still have been active during these COVID times with having repeater games, having virtual meetings, having the club meetings. It's all very important for the club itself. And I think that's all I've got for you, Kyle.
All right. Very good. Let me unpin you here. All right. Rebecca, we have a budget to pass, and this is going to be very interesting on how we're going to do this. Rebecca, I'm going to pin you. Do you want to go over old budget stuff and go over new budget stuff? And then this is going to be interesting on getting the vote from the membership in a Google chat. I think this will be a first. All right, floor is yours.
Okay, so our club's financial year starts October 1st and runs through September 30th. Our budget for 2019 through 2020 was $34,882. We did not spend nearly that much money because we did not have in-person meetings. We don't have a holiday party. We don't have the field day. But our current budget that we're trying to propose for 2021 would come in at $31,697. Keeping in mind that $16,875 is set aside for Winterfest 2022 because the expenses for that are incurred in the 2021 financial period, and all of that money will get recouped. The money that we need to keep the club running would come in at $14,822. That would be for the engineering committee to continue the upgrade of our Arden net It will take care of our field day for 2021. It will take care of our education. It will take care of our website, our insurance, the storage unit that we have. We're also looking at getting some more banners so that we can publicize the club whenever we have our field days. So if you have questions, you can put them in the chat, or you can email me at treasurer@slsrc.org. Our current financial status is that we have $13,870.84 in our checking account. We have $3,418.24 in PayPal. Our insurance CD is $25,993.15, and our education savings account is $9,025.35 for total assets of $52,307.58.
All right.
That sums it up.
Okay, so this is what we're going to do. Is we need a motion, we need a second, and then we vote. Just so everyone knows, what is the budget that we are proposing for 2021 again, Rebecca?
$31,697, and that would include the expenses for Winterfest 2022.
Okay. So if somebody wants to, all right, Bill has made a motion that he approves the budget for 2021. Art Lewis has seconded it. George Schindler has seconded it. So now what we need is everyone in the chat to say approve. If you approve. If you do not approve, please say you do not approve so we can count those ballots. But we need people. Oh, Rebecca just put it in the chat. $31,697. So please type in approve in the chat if you approve on that budget. And we are going to, hopefully we can get some approve. Hopefully we can get a majority here. And if we get a majority, I think we're going to go with it. I'm going to... All right, I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Can we get 20? Can we get 20? 19. One more. One more in the QVC Home Shopping Network. Roland approves. All right, there's 20. I think we're good. I hate to do it this way, everyone, but it's the best we can do right now. So... Rebecca, you good with everyone approving? You're good. All right, we're going to go with it. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. If you still haven't voted, you can go ahead and hit approve or type approve in the chat, and we're going to go with it. So thanks, Rebecca. Appreciate it. All right, we are ready for Rod. Let me introduce. Well, first, does anybody have any other general announcements? Here, let me put my ugly mug back up here. Does anybody have any announcements that we have not covered in my general business meeting before we move on to Rod? I will be watching the chat, but in the meantime, I'm going to introduce Rod. So Rod, K0DAS, was raised in western Kansas on a wheat farm and attended Kansas State University, where he earned a BS and an MS degree in electrical engineering. Served 4.5 years in the Air Force, retired in 2010 after 42 years with Rockwell Collins in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And he was a senior systems engineer in advanced communications at Rockwell Collins and was honored as the corporate engineer of the year in 2002. Rod obtained his ham license. He was licensed as KN0DAS in 1960 and has been active on the air ever since. Holds an extra class license, is a life member of ARL, and currently serves as the ARL Midwest Division Director. Rod, when is that title up? Is it the first of the year?
Yeah, actually about noon on January 1st, Art becomes the new director of the Midwest Division.
Very, very good. Okay. Thank you for your service. I appreciate you being my director for all of these years. I appreciate your service.
Thank you. Well, I hope I've done everybody in the division good, although there's always controversy about things. But, you know, it's one of those things I felt like ham radio did so much for my career, I needed to pay back. And so that was my way of doing it for 10 years.
Right, right. Gotcha. All right. So let's get your screen share there, and
Okay.
you will have the floor here. So,
Does my audio come through okay?
yep, sounds good.
Okay. See if I can make this happen.
I want to close that. Yep, and
Okay.
you're on.
We're on. Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. It's my honor to be your program for tonight. I'm going to share with you something I've been involved in for 20 years. It didn't start out that way, it just happened that way. But that's the search for Amelia Earhart's airplane. And I'll share with you some of the adventure, some of the technology, and the emphasis is going to be on some of the ham radio activities associated with this search. So I've got a whole series of slides here, and hopefully maybe there'll be a little bit of time for questions. Otherwise, you can contact me directly either by phone or email if you want to talk about any of these areas.
Hey, Rod, you might want to hit that hide button. See where it says stop sharing at the bottom, and then to the right it says hide.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just hit the hide button. There you
Yep.
go. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, well, a little bit of history to start with. Amelia Earhart was born in Kansas in 1897 and died in 1937, just a few days short of her 40th birthday, in an attempt to be the first to fly around the world as close as possible to the equator. On the right, you see the airplane she used, which is a Lockheed Electra. The model was a L-10E. So here's a little chart of some of her accomplishments through those years. And I won't read through all of these, but the one that always strikes me is that the history people have left out. You all remember in 1927, Charles Lindbergh was the first to cross the Atlantic solo. And Amelia is listed as the second person to do it in 1932. And the first woman to cross the Atlantic solo. Now, this was quite a feat back then at the state of the art of aircraft. So what happened in those 5 years between Lindbergh and 1932, Amelia? This is what the history books leave out, what I think really tells us a lot about this woman. There were 5 other pilots, at least 5 that are known about, attempted to do what Lindbergh did, and they all lost their life doing it. Now, Amelia is well aware of that, and yet she takes that risk and accomplishes it. And so at that point, she becomes internationally famous and was a very charismatic personality. She was really setting the pace for telling women, you know, the world is yours. You can have any career you want, and I'm going to be the example for it. So she was in the paper a lot, and finally, 1937, in that summer, they set out to fly around the world, and she almost makes it. She's got 3 legs left to complete the trip back to Oakland, California. And on the 2nd of July, she leaves Lae, New Guinea. It's on the eastern coast of New Guinea. And she's got to fly from there over the open ocean to Howland Island, land there, refuel, fly to Hawaii, and then from Hawaii on to Oakland. So here's the path that she took. And you can see there in the square the flight that she was lost on. That's about 2,500 nautical miles of pretty much open ocean. There was early in the flight, they were within visual range of the island of New Britain, but after that, it's nothing but blue sky and blue water. She had a navigator with her, Fred Noonan. Fred was probably one of the premier navigators. He had left his job with Pan Am. He was teaching navigators there how to fly the clipper ships across the Pacific, and became her navigator on this flight. Here's what the cockpit of the plane looks like. If you can imagine sitting in a Volkswagen Beetle for 20 some hours, that was her environment, plus 2 450 horse engines roaring away just outside the window. No insulation in these planes either. The back of the fuselage was full of fuel tanks for this long flight. And you can see just a small opening across the top into the cockpit. Where the photographer's setting on this was where Fred Noonan's navigation table was, and he had some navigation instruments back there. And the way he communicated with Amelia up in the cockpit was they put a fishing pole along the ceiling there, and they would clip a note with a clothespin and send it back and forth. Really, really crude by today's standards, but that's what they did. Here was their destination. This is a photo taken, I think, in the 60s of Howland. It's about 1.25 miles long. It's kind of teardrop shaped, and at the widest spot there is 3/4 of a mile wide. Barely sticks out of the ocean. I think at low tide, the maximum elevation there is about 12 feet. And they built a runway on it in 1937. In fact, the United States was trying to lay claim to these islands back then, and they were doing it by depositing 4 colonists who were basically 18, 19, 20-year-olds graduated from Kamehameha High School in Honolulu. They would go down there and live on these islands. There were 3 of them. They lived on these 3 islands for about 6 months at a time. Then the Coast Guard would come down, bring them new supplies, and rotate the crews. And this was the facilities these guys built there. And the small little building you see to the right, they built especially for Amelia to take a shower and rest and sleep overnight. And you can't see it too well in the photograph, but there's a wire antenna that strings along the top, kind of angling up to the right. Each one of these crews had an amateur radio operator, and that's how they kept in contact with the outside world. So on the morning that she was to arrive from New Guinea, the Coast Guard cutter Itasca was there. They brought down fuel, supplies, and a crew to help manage the airplane, land it, help her with communications. And we have their logs. These are the radio logs from the Itasca, where they typed on a mill. You know, it's an all capitals typewriter. And they keep a log of what she says, what time she said it, what they transmitted, and the frequencies, and a signal report. Back then, the receivers did not have S meters. So the signals were quantified in the old QSA system. In other words, the signal was rated as an S1 through S5, depending on readability with noise. S5 being totally easily copyable. S1, you get a word or two through the noise. So we were asked 20 years ago by a company called Nauticos to help them do some radio signal analysis in an effort to predict how far the airplane was from the Itasca at the time she made these various radio transmissions. So this diagram kind of shows you how we broke the problem down. There were 4 or 5 of us, all Collins employees at the time. And the idea was to analyze all of the blocks you see there in yellow. And from the information there, we can calculate the ones in the light blue, and ultimately the range between the Itasca and the L10. We did this first with modeling, computer modeling, and you'll see under there in the blue text some of the computer modeling work that was done. And then we also tried to verify the computer models with actual experiments. And I'll show you a few pictures of how all this took place, but it's quite a daunting task. And as you can imagine, there's a lot of statistical variation and even doing it as rigorous as we could. For example, here's a picture of the Coast Guard receiver. This is a CGR-32. It was made by RCA. And in 1935-36, it was probably one of the most expensive HF receivers you could buy. I found ads for it where RCA sold the commercial version for $495. Now, I think you could buy a brand new Ford back then for the same amount of money, to give you an idea. So there weren't very many of them made, and then even fewer of them survived to today. This particular one we found in the Hammond Radio Museum and just outside of Toronto. We also spent a lot of time modeling the airplane, and the you can see in the dark red the V-shaped wire antenna for HF. We modeled all this in NEC 4, which is a professional version of EasyNEC, if you're familiar with that. Back then, the computer we put this into, I don't know, it took us, I think it took it 8 hours to come up with a solution. So how do we check it with a model? Well, the Earhart Museum in Atchison, Kansas has a custom-made, one-of-a-kind, 1/12 scale model, which incidentally was built by a retired Boeing engineer from Wichita, Kansas. So after convincing them we weren't going to harm it or anything, they allowed us to take it out of the museum, bring it back to Cedar Rapids. And we custom made and designed a antenna range especially for this particular model. And here's the range. And you can see the airplane up on the platform. We turned that every 5 degrees, took a reading, and we did this multiple times throughout the day and the evening, and then averaged all of the readings together to come up with the azimuthal antenna pattern. And this is what's interesting. I kind of stress this point with especially college students in engineering. If you look down on the airplane from the top, in other words, the nose of it is pointed at the top of the screen at 0 degrees. The NEC model basically said the pattern was nearly circular, the red circle. Well, the 1/12 scale model showed that it really had kind of a dimple in it and a lobe, a very broad lobe off to the forward right side. Now the problem was, which one do you believe? The 12th scale model, was pretty accurate, except, you need to scale everything. Well, if the real sized airplane is made of aluminum, you need some metal in the model that's 12 times better to the conductivity than aluminum, which doesn't exist really. So we did some other tests with full-size airplanes and really finally convinced ourselves after some investigation into the NEC program that on these very low feed point impedance antennas, that the currents that flow on the skin of the aircraft have a huge influence on the model, and NEC was not really accurately doing that for us. So we then had to live with this fact that there was a little bit of an antenna pattern, which complicated things. The Pima Air Museum in Tucson, Arizona has an L10A, and this is back, when was this? 2005. It's sitting outside and was not in very good shape. I knew one of the fellows that was on the board of directors for that museum, so we got access to it, put the airplane on, or put the antenna on it, and measured the antenna impedance to verify what our model was showing. Since then, they have put it in their restoration hangar. It's completely spiffed up and it's on display now. So propagation, we're over saltwater. It's pretty much vertical polarization. There's a program called GR Wave that will model airplanes at altitude over saltwater to ships at sea. So we wanted to measure that. And fortunately, we worked for a company that had an experimentally licensed Cessna 206. So we made a vertical trailing wire antenna for it. The fellow in the center there is a lifelong friend of mine who's also well, he's just retired now, but he's a Rockwell corporate pilot. He flew it for us. The fellow on the left is Tom Vincent, one of our cohorts in this whole thing. And we took it down to Melbourne, Florida. We have a facility down there, and flew this whole thing off the coast of Florida and measured the signal strength precisely once a second. So here's the airplane. You can't see the wire, but the little thing labeled as sausage is a long nylon tube full of about 20 some pounds of buckshot. And it comes out, and this is an in-fed resonant half wave on 3.5 megs. Our receiving site was on the end of Cocoa Beach Pier out over the saltwater. And to give you an example, this is a diagram of the signal strength versus distance across the horizontal scale. The black line is what GR wave, the computer software, modeled. And the blue and the red are our measured data, which agrees very, very closely with GR wave. So that was good news. So putting it all together, the radio signal analysis again predicts the distance at the time of these transmissions between the ship and the Electra. Other people were analyzing navigation, what Fred Noonan's habits were, how he did things, what made sense, what didn't. And you can combine that and work with fuel consumption, weather, visibility of the island. What she said in her transmissions are some clues. And basically come up with an economically feasible search area out there in the ocean where that airplane, basically we're known as the crash and sank theory. She simply could not visually find the island and ran out of fuel and had to ditch in the ocean. And that airplane lies at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean out there near Howland Island. And all you have to do is find it. So we got our chance to do this in March and April of 2002. Now, I served in the Air Force and spent most of it here on the island of Oahu. And I'd went out deep sea fishing once, but other than that, I really wasn't an ocean-going person, at least on the surface of the ocean. So I came down, we saw the Davidson, which was going to be our vessel. It's only 130 feet long, and I thought, oh my gosh, this thing is not big enough. We're going to be out there for 2 months in the middle of nowhere. I don't know about all this, but we soon learned to live with it. So here's the trip down there. These kind of ships don't travel very fast. They make about 10 or 11 knots. So it took us 5 days to transit from Honolulu down to Howland Island. Now, Howland is located, you'll see on the map here, very close to the equator and a little bit east of the international date line. And this is what you look at out there in the morning, kind of colorful sunrises, blue ocean, daytime, really blue ocean. In the evening, another nice sunset and blue ocean. And as we get closer to the equator, you really see some outstanding sunrises and sunsets. It's unbelievable, some of the photographs we got down there.
Rod,
So
did you take a radio? Is that's the most important question. Did you
Oh,
have
yeah.
a radio on this trip?
Oh, yes, I'm getting to the radio.
Okay, good deal.
Here's the sonar search sled. This is the vehicle that has side scan sonar on it, lights and cameras. And you'll see this cable up here at the top. Let me see if my cursor gets up there. Right here, there's a single pin. And then this cable comes up to the ship. And this whole thing is towed behind the ship just above the sea floor on the end of up to 6 miles of cable. So all of the electrical energy to run the electronics comes down the cable. All the electronics are in these pressure vessels. And the data then, the sonar data digitally comes back up fiber optics in the center of this cable. It's an amazing thing. The cable runs through a clevis over these traction wheels that are run by hydraulic motors. Comes out, think of this as a giant fishing reel. So the 6 miles of cable, when that reel is full, is all that cable on there. And this is pretty much a do-it-yourself thing. I'm one of the crew for recovery and launch. We were called hookers. On each side, we had this long pole that we would snag it with. We had to get lines on it to stabilize it. Otherwise, the sled weighed about 1,700 pounds, and you couldn't be bringing it on board without some stability. Otherwise, it'd be crashing into things from the ocean, rolling the ship. So here it comes on board. Here's a view of the Davidson. We only got off of it once down there, just when, as you can see, the sea was pretty much flat. And the A-frame on the back has the clevis with the cable going into the ground. So here's a diagram of what it looks like. The ocean is 3.5 miles deep. You pull this thing through the water column at a speed of about 1.5 miles an hour. So the cable lays out in this catenary. So, if you could see through the ocean with binoculars, I don't think you could see the sled. The sled was called Nomad, by the way. It's towed about 80 to 100 meters off the surface of the seafloor. And it trails behind the ship at about 4 miles away. We call it mowing the lawn. If you can visualize Nomad going into the screen, it does a sonar ping once a second off of each side, which sweeps about 750 meters. So you're talking about 1.5 kilometers wide swath of data. And it's just like mowing the lawn. You pull it for 35 miles, go out and make a big turn, line it all up, come back and overlap about 20%. We don't want to trust getting everything out in these far reaches. So we overlap each line. And all this data comes up. It's a 24/7 operation. We rotate crews, 12-hour shifts. And believe it or not, this is Tom. Tom and I were the two from Rockwell invited. And he's got a joystick you can just barely see right here. And that joystick lets out cable or draws in cable. And that's how we control the height of the sled. And we're watching a little forward scan sonar so we don't run into anything. Euphemistically, they call it sampling the bottom. You do not want that sled to touch anything down there. So one of the first things, I'm trying to learn sonar by reading the manuals, and I see these arcs coming up. And over the next 20 minutes, we painted this sonar picture you see on the screen. And I didn't know what it was, but one of the sonar gurus that spent his career in the Navy says, "Oh my gosh, we're going over a undersea volcanic caldera." There's a volcanic caldera that's been there for probably millennia, maybe millions of years, and we're the first human beings to see it. So that got us all fired up. Next thing we wanted to see was the airplane. But we didn't. At the end of the day, we had a electronics failure, or not electronics failure, hydraulics failure after 7 weeks at sea. And we had to come in a little bit early, but here's a mosaic of all the sonar. You can see each one of these is one of the tracks that we went through. That caldera I just showed you is this little feature right here. It's about 1.5 miles wide. So radios, well, we were kind of the newbies here. The rest of these guys roll salts at sea and sonar people. And so we brought our radios along. Tom and I are both amateurs. Tom is NY0V. And we got this little cramped quarters there in the corner we had to share with the sonar analyst and a few other things, a large printer. But we ran an ICOM 706 AH4 and a sloping wire antenna up to the mast. And we quickly became very popular because in those days, a phone call on Inmarsat run you about $3.50 to $4 a minute. So we had our folks back here in the Collins HF antenna farm. They volunteered to run the station and get on the ham bands, and we'd run phone patches back through Cedar Rapids. And that became very popular with people, especially after a few weeks at sea. So in the middle of all this, of course, something unexpected happens. The ship is advertised to hold 63,000 gallons of diesel fuel. After we've been out there a few weeks, we start measuring fuel consumption, and whoa, we're burning it a little bit faster than we thought. And the ship really only holds 43,000. So we had to stop, run to the gas station in Tarawa, which is 600 miles away. It takes us 2 days to get there. And they said, well, okay, we're going to gas up in about 6 hours and then we're going to leave. Don't go too far away. So Tom and I go off and explore Tarawa, and it's raining. Finally, we come back to the ship, and 6 hours, they haven't put one drop of fuel on it yet. So we move all of our stuff onto the pier so that we're technically on Tarawa. And we went and saw the licensing authority there and became licensed within 20 minutes of T30CXX. And we operated for 24 hours, passing out DX to everybody.
That's a drive-through amateur radio license right there.
There it is, yeah. This is what I call the deer in the headlights shot. This is 3 in the morning. We've been awake for 24 hours now. You don't sleep when you go to Tarawa. I mean, how
Right.
often can anybody go to Tarawa?
Wow.
So when we had to quit because of the hydraulics failure, we had our favorite target. This is what it looked like on sonar. Here it is blown up. And for scale, this is the outline of the airplane. And for several years, we thought, this might be the airplane, but we didn't have a chance to look at it with high resolution sonar. We got to go back. Well, this is everybody. Oh, by the way, this is everybody that was on the ship. We had 3 gals. This is the captain, pretty nondescript fella. This is Dave Jordan, the president of Nauticos. A couple people from the National Geographic. So here's the summary. Those 7 weeks, we covered 630 square miles. So 4 years later, we got to go back again, this time a bigger ship, 2 of everything, a little bit larger crew, more sophisticated sonar now. It's color sonar instead of black and white. This is our research vessel, Mount Mitchell, coming into Honolulu. One of the guys rented a helicopter and went out and shot these pictures of it. The captain, younger guy, 3rd generation commercial sea captain. This is the second mate, Joe. He was our first mate on 2 years earlier. He's been with us on every expedition. We even took a pay cut just to join this one as part of the ship's crew. One of the things we do on these expeditions is emphasize the educational aspect of the whole thing. And so we took a teacher with us who's in the lower right here, Carla Ray. She was a extended learning instructor in a high school up in the Minneapolis area. And the other thing that we weren't able to do on the first one that we felt a little bit nervous about, I mean, you're out there for 4 weeks and you're at least 2 days from any other human being. Somebody gets sick or injured. The only thing we had was a first aid kit and the utensils in the galley. But on this expedition, we were fortunate enough to bring along a medical doctor, Dr. Geddes, who's here in the lower right. Or excuse me, lower left. Really the most important person on a ship and a crew that you charter is the cook, the chef. If you don't eat well out there, nothing works right. And we were extremely fortunate here. Dan Nakamura, we hired him with 24 hours notice. He had just left his job as the chief chef at the Honolulu Country Club and was going to start his own restaurant. And I guess this job pays pretty good because he jumped on it in a hurry, had never worked at sea before in his life, but we ate very well on this trip. The 2 gals to the right are twins from the island of Palau. Shirley's the assistant chef, and Sherry, her sister, first time at sea, came along as a cabin steward, as her husband was on deployment into Afghanistan at the time. And then the gal on the left, Amy, is another cabin steward. And I'll show you these 2 pictures because this is how this one wound up too. These 2 twins, you'll hear me talk about them a little bit. So there's Tom and I again, and we put our logo on the sled, the sonar sled. You can see it's more modern equipment. It's a two-body system. The sonar equipment is on the larger one, and then the smaller one is nothing but steel. It's the weight that takes everything down to the bottom, and the sonar trails about 200 feet behind it. And the whole idea is to kind of get any disturbance in the water away from the sonar so it doesn't add noise to the sonar. This is where we had big high hopes. This is the ROV, the Magellan 725. This baby is, I don't know, a $2.5 million machine, but it's got its own propulsion. It's still tethered with a cable, but it's got manipulator arms. I mean, it's like an undersea robot. You can pick up things with it, bring it to the surface. It's got cameras, lights that swivel. Unfortunately, we never even got it wet. So here's the scene in the operations room now with big screen color monitors for the sonar. Cameramen's there. We're going by that target I showed you from 2002, and the hopes is that will be a eureka moment. There it is, an airplane. Unfortunately, it wasn't. So we're back to mowing the lawn. This time it was 8-hour shifts. We had enough people, we didn't have to do 12-hour shifts. And guess what? We had to cross the date line again, go to Tarawa, this time for medical situation with the two twins. So when we crossed the date line, of course, we had to take this picture, you know, what day are we? Are we in tomorrow or yesterday?
Did you call back home with the lottery numbers?
We should have. So we get to Tarawa, and this was a very stressful trip. I won't go into the details, but the twins were, it really looked life-threatening at first, and then didn't get much, it got a little better by the time we got to Tarawa. Tom and I says, we got to find the hams on Tarawa. So we found the resident old-time hammer, Mr. Hang Kum Key, and he invited us to his shack, T30AB. And this is Hang in his station. And I've been on Tarawa twice, and it's always over 100 degrees there. You're right on the equator. And no building that I've ever been in had air conditioning except this man's ham shack. The rest of his house was not air conditioned, but this ham shack had an air conditioner. We had a wonderful visit with him. And of course, we hauled all of our stuff ashore, set up on the pier again, operated all night, worked all over the world with 100 watts. And you can see over here in the corner, the AH4 antenna tuner, a 35-foot fiberglass mast with a wire on it. And then down here are the radials going off into the saltwater lagoon. A very, very effective antenna for this kind of operation. So once we got the twins medevaced, the charter was pretty much over. We headed from Tarawa to Honolulu, 7-day trip. And the seas were really pounding us. There were 3 days worth of 25-foot seas coming right on our bow. Some of the Navy guys ex-Navy guys were seasick, and it made sleeping pretty tough. And unfortunately, I was immune to this. I think that's the only good thing about old age. Your inner ear gets disconnected, and it was quite a ride. So you can see there's pretty much a whole crew. The captain's not in this picture, but that's all of us, and pretty much relieved to be back in civilization on solid land at the pier in Honolulu. So another 7 weeks at sea. This time we covered 700 square miles. Still no airplane. So we had several false starts between 2006 and 2017, but we finally, everything came together and very quickly with very short notice. I mean, we were getting ready for Christmas 2016 when all of a sudden we found out there's a ship available if we want to jump on it. It's a very reasonable price, and we got to be ready by mid-February. And this is it. We didn't realize we took a picture of it, but it's a smaller boat here. This one, this is a big Chinese freighter right here at the Honolulu Pier. So here's one we took with a drone. We had a couple little drones with us out there in the ocean, and we took a photo of ourselves out near Howland with the. This is the Mermaid Vigilance. It's like a truck at sea. The castle and everything's pushed up to the front, which made it look kind of odd. But boy, we had lots of nice big deck space in the back for all kinds of things. And this time, we're using a autonomous underwater vehicle. This one's from Woods Hole, and they run about $1 million a piece. 4 guys from Woods Hole came to operate it and service it. We were known as the Radio Boys. In this case, Brian, K0DAS, he had just freshly retired from Collins. I mean, just a week before we had to get on the plane for Honolulu. And Tom again, and so we became known as the Radio Boys. Here's the Hui Boys. This is Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute. The 4 guys that great guys to work with at sea, and their baby. Elgin Long, maybe some of you have heard of him. He's written probably the most scholarly book on the Earhart mystery, a technical one. Elgin's a retired Flying Tigers captain and has done 30-some years of research on this. And his granddaughter, Marika, is a photojournalist with TV stations.
Rod, why is almost every undersea rover you see painted yellow? Do you know?
Yeah, pretty much because the blue ocean, if you have to find it someplace out there visually, it's much easier to find yellow against blue than most any other color.
Gotcha. So no construction orange or neon green?
Yeah.
Only orange.
Yeah, green doesn't do much, but orange and bright yellow, that's it. Yeah, that's why the life vests are orange. So this is the family. You've seen Sue in my other pictures. She's Dave's sister and also a sonar guru. Her husband, Jeff, he teaches sonar to the Navy guys with his company called Azomar. And again, we had the same doctor, which was fortunate because people get sick and injured on these things. We had 4 gals. Sue again. Sally is from NASA Education. And Marika you saw, and Dr. Pam. And before anybody points it out, yep, I knew there was a sign, no photography, but I did take this picture. Here's the crew, and that's the nice thing about this ship. It had a very spacious bridge. This is the bridge, the operating room of the whole ship. The captain is from Mexico, Captain Noe. Most of the crew, except for 2, are all Indonesians. The 2 exceptions were Alex and I forget what the other guy's name were. They were the chief engineer and the chief electrician for the ship were from the Ukraine. So you can imagine when we have meals together, there's about 3 or 4 languages floating around in there. But we had an excellent cook. This is Peter and his assistant chef. I forgot his name right now, but we ate well. So here's the group picture of everyone aboard. So a little bit about life at sea on this spacious thing. This is very early. This is still in the harbor in Honolulu, but one of the things we make a point of doing is integrating really well with a crew. I mean, you're going to live with them. Your life depends on them. And a lot of science crews go out on these research vessels and they kind of, it's us and them. Well, not so with us. We did a lot to integrate ourselves relationship-wise with everybody on the ship. So that's the start of it right here. A little picnic on the deck one evening. these guys loved to play basketball in the evening. They had no net. The backboard was cobbled together out of a skid. So Joe and I went off to, I think it was Walmart in Honolulu, and we bought them a new goal and 2 basketballs. So they were thrilled because every evening they'd go out and have a game of basketball while we were at sea. Well, inevitably, it happened. The basketball went overboard one night out near Howland. And it's floating away, and Tom and I saw it, and we started calling for, I don't know if you guys remember the movie Castaway, but we started calling for Wilson, and we kept watching Wilson go further and further at sea. Somebody notified the captain. The captain swung the ship around. They cobbled together a laundry basket on a long pole, and we rescued Wilson, brought him home safe and sound.
That's great.
So safety at sea, that's a very important aspect of all this. So we had a couple of drills, abandoned ship drills. You grab all the water you can, put on your life jacket, long sleeve shirt, get to your muster point. They take a roll. Half of you go to starboard, half of you to port side. There's a lifeboat that'll hold each group with supplies supposedly for 30 days if you don't eat or drink too much. Fortunately, we never had to do that. Now, ham radio, this is our 3rd trip, and we've got the deluxe suite. I mean, here's up on the bridge. It's a very spacious bridge. We like to be up high. And we got a table right there beside the control console for the radio station. And hams, I tell you, hams are great all over. There's a fellow in Honolulu that we'd met in 2006. He says, I'll tell you what, you guys need some power out there. I'm going to loan you my Alpha amplifier. So I says, well, we're going to be gone for 2 months. But that's all right. Just bring it back when you get back into port. So we had everything we wanted. We had a couple of antennas. We were up pretty close. The antennas for the ship are all right on top of the bridge there. And so we kind of wanted to stay horizontally polarized so we didn't couple into the marine band radios. So there's our 40-meter sloping whip off the deck on one side. On the other side, we used a stepper IR vertical, only we put it horizontal. The counterpoise is the Mermaid Vigilance. And this worked extremely well. It's like 65 feet off the water. Here's one of the sunsets.
The top of that, go back to that picture, Rod.
Yeah.
Go back one more. So that antenna is 65 feet off the water?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That doesn't, it had a tall castle on it.
Wow, that does not look like 65 feet or 64 feet. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Maybe there's, I don't know if there's another picture that shows it better perspective. I kept thinking we ought to see some steam or sizzle, you know, when the sun sinks into the water like this. Tom's favorite thing was, you know, propagation is terrible on the high bands, even back then. But 40 meters, right around sunrise or sunset, the whole world opened up, and he's a big CWDXer. And so he'd get up and go up there, do the gray line. Here's his map of some of the places he worked. By the way, and this is what the Great Circle map looks like from Howland Island. You can see we're closer to Australia than we are to the United States.
So whenever you were marine mobile, were you just using your what call sign, and what were you using for your call?
We were using our own calls. Yeah, we would just use our own call, Maritime Mobile Region 2.
Gotcha.
One of the STEM exercises we did, we couldn't get propagation all the way from the ship into Virginia. So I think this particular one, we always had good contact with a fellow in Hawaii, who then put us on Echolink into a repeater in Antietam, Virginia. And from that repeater to Kathy's classroom, and she's KM4TAY in her 4th grade class, we spent an hour visiting with these students and telling them about what we're doing, why we're doing it, and answering their questions. Huge hit. Really enjoyed this. The kids were smart and asked a lot of very good questions over this radio echo link, repeater link. One of the other things we did back in 2006, which everybody wanted and expected this time, was a visit with the astronauts on the International Space Station. Of course, we had Sally with us, who worked at NASA, who then got us hooked up with the amateur radio coordinator with amateur radio on the ISS, and we arranged some schedules when they were flying over that part of the Pacific, because there's nobody else out there to talk to. And we used, there's the rig on 145.8 simplex. We took turns. One of us had to aim the aero antenna as the ISS went overhead, while the other one, we operate the radio and put different people on it to visit with the astronauts. So here's the result of one of them. Finally, several times we had kind of a misfire. They got busy and didn't make the sched. But we had a 10-minute pass, and it turned out to be International Women's Week. So the 4 women were all prepared, and they each had about 2 minutes visit with Kathy Whitson, who is a female astronaut from Iowa. And I think she holds the record for the longest hours in space now, too. Anyway, huge hit. Everybody was on a high after talking to them. It lasted for about 10 minutes, and then it went over the horizon, and bloop, that was the end of the contact. Howland Island from 3 miles. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife controls this island, and they will not let a ship any closer than 3 miles to the island because it's a bird sanctuary. They said, we asked for permission to land on it. They said, absolutely not. Unless you have some sort of an emergency, you cannot come any closer than 3 miles. So we stood off 3 miles, looked at it with binoculars and telephoto lens. You can just barely see it. The only thing that really strikes you is to spot it even from this close distance is the white surf. So we put up our drone, and we flew it a little closer. We flew it within 2 miles from 1,000 feet and took this photo of the island. The whole idea was that we really wanted to see just how hard it was to see that island from 1,000 feet. And we did this test more like what Earhart would have had, 8 o'clock in the morning when the sun is off into the east and you're arriving from the west. How close do you have to get to before you can detect that island? And amazingly, even with the drone, it was like 7 miles, and most people even then can't see it. So here's, I'll run through these fairly fast, but here's how this AUV is launched. I mean, this baby is autonomous, it's programmed, it's got batteries in it. It goes to the bottom of the ocean after we plop it in with this hydraulic launch mechanism. It's like a torpedo. And you'll notice there's a rope attached to it. We let it get well clear of the ship. The rope's still attached. Now, he's got 150 pounds of scrap steel in his hand on the end of that rope. And he'll toss that over into the ocean, and that steel drags the vehicle down to the bottom. That way we don't waste battery driving it to the bottom. It takes it about 3 hours to descend the 3.5 miles to the bottom. Once it's at the bottom, it'll cut the cord. The steel stays there to rust away for eternity. And then it starts doing its mission. Now it navigates by sonar transponder, which is this silver cylinder. These little guys are $50,000 a piece, and the 2 orange balls are floats. And again, it goes in with the weight, and it sets in a fixed location, which we survey in with the ship. And when it's done, there's 2 of them that the sled navigates with. When we're done with the mission, which lasts about 24 hours, the weights are cut loose, and those orange floats bring the transponder back to the surface, and we have to visually find it. But we know where we put it in, so it's not that hard to find. The sled comes up, and it basically makes a automated satellite call to the ship and says, here I am, here's my latitude and longitude, come pick me up. And so we drive over and find it and retrieve it. So here's some of the things it sees. And by the way, the resolution here is another order of magnitude better than what we had at 2006. This is a landslide. The red line is the center line of the track of the vehicle. And this is a landslide. Who knows whether it's a week old, 10 days old, a century old, or 1,000 years old. Nothing moves down on the bottom of the ocean here. And to give you an idea of the scale, here's that same debris field from the landslide, but you can see where it started, clear back up here. It slid down. So that was a slide that started small, grew, and got much, much bigger, and finally pooled out in here. This is a distance here of probably around 4.5 miles. Here's another thing we found. Sue, sonar gal Sue, names everything. This one's called the shredded wheat. And basically, we think it's a coil of undersea cable. But you can kind of see some of the loops of wire extending out from it. If it fell off of a ship or maybe it was pushed off, who knows, but it's been there. Here's another object, probably a long mast off of a ship. This one, we don't know what it is. The interesting thing here, what you see here is the shadow, the sonar shadow. So this is the vertical shape of this object. We're looking straight down on it here, but the sonar imaging energy is coming from the side. So this tip is this piece right here. So it's a big jagged piece of metal. It's probably some 60 feet long or so. Looks like it's made of metal, but no clue as to what it is. So this time nothing happened to stop us. We ran through all the time we had chartered for. We covered 750 additional square nautical miles. And until recently, I couldn't really show this, but here's Howland. Here's Baker Island, about 35 miles away. One of our previous sponsors went out on their own in 2009 with 2 of these AUVs, and they spent 6 months out there, and they covered 2,200 square miles. They did all of this stuff down here that we didn't think really was productive. This green oval here is where our analysis says there should be an 85% chance of containing the airplane. And you can see we've covered all of that plus more all around on the outside. The total area covered with sonar here is over 4,000 square nautical miles, and the airplane's not there. So what do? Well, we had to come in. In fact, the ship, by the way, was flagged in Singapore. It's owned by an Australian company. So it had to go to Singapore. So they dropped us all off in the Marshall Islands in Majuro. Well, that was fine with us. Tom and I tried to get Victor 73 call signs and never could even get a response out of the licensing authority. So finally, consulting all the rules and regulations, we have reciprocal licensing with the Marshall Islands. So we set up and operated as our own call stroke V73. We had everybody all primed to go. By the way, these ships are always a dry ship. So once we get off the ship, it's usually time to catch up on the adult beverages. So we had cabins rented out here right beside the lagoon on Majuro. And Tom says, okay, we're going to work DX tonight on 40 meters. We've got our antenna up to saltwater ground. Here we go. The gals came out with beer. They're going to have a big time talking to the hams. In 5 hours, we managed to work 5 stations. It was a big bust. the bands were just in terrible shape that night.
What year was this?
2017.
Ah,
This would have been March of 2017. But we had fun. Anyway, so we all got back home. We haven't given up. The airplane still remains out there waiting to be found. We're working towards Search Expedition 4. If you want to really dig into this with a lot more detail, check out these two websites, Nautico's website, and then the one called earhartdiscovery.com. These two books, I mentioned Elgin Long. This is his book on the left. It's called Amelia Earhart, The Mystery Solved. Dave Jordan's book, The Deep Sea Quest for Amelia Earhart, covers those first two expeditions and has all the details and adventures with the mechanical failures going to Tarawa, the medical issues and things like that. I think you can find either one of these books on Amazon or even the Nauticos website. And I didn't have time to make another one, but another website you might check out, because we just finished working with this company out in Virginia to recreate from microphone to receiver the full up Earhart communication link. In other words, flying on a Beech 18 over the Atlantic to a ship with the CGR 32 receiver on it and collecting data on that. We just finished doing that last month. And the company we helped, or that helped us, is called Dynamic Aviation. So go to their website. It's dynamicaviation.com. They're located in Bridgewater, Virginia. And you'll find a lot of interesting things about historic aircraft and their help with us. And I think there'll be some videos. We had a media team with us that took a lot of footage for our STEM education aspects of all of this. So in summary, I like the way one of the owner of the boat that we used was an interesting fella, and he summed the whole thing up. He says, some old guys came out here with old radios and got an old airplane and an old boat, and they came home with some new information, and that's about what it was. We're still working it out. So with that, that's the presentation. I'll stand by if there's any questions, or maybe I'll run overtime here.
very cool. Very, very neat. So you were working at Rockwell Collins, and they sponsored 2 people to go out. And how were you picked to go out? Did I miss that in the presentation and I wasn't paying attention? Or how did you come about to get on that actual ship?
Well, it's one of those things where sometimes you shouldn't pay attention when you answer the phone. I was getting ready to go on a trip to Germany.
Hit your stop presenting, Rod, and
Where is it?
yeah, we're getting into the matrix here.
How do I find it here?
Let's see.
I got to get out of this.
Yep.
Okay, I found it. Stop presenting.
Yeah, there you go.
There we go. Okay, so I answered the phone. Tom Vincent calls up and he says, "Hey," he says, "there's our general manager called me. He says there's this guy from a company called Nauticos that's looking for some volunteer help for doing radio signal analysis on the Amelia Earhart mystery." And he says, "Are you interested?" And I said, "Oh, I don't know. I'm pretty busy. I'm getting ready to go to Germany." And so I says, "Well, how much time does he want?" He says, "Maybe 40 hours of your time." I said, "Yeah, okay, I can do that when I get back." So I took along a book from the library to even read up on what all this was. I mean, I was just vaguely familiar with the Earhart story. I came back from the trip and we had a little meeting. Tom had gathered 2 or 3 other guys and says, "What do you think?" I says, "I don't think there's enough information here to do anything right." The navigation guys from our avionics side, they said, "Well, the radio guys could tell us this. We might be able to figure this out and eliminate that." And gosh, from there on, we got hooked. And 40 hours, I think we've probably spent several thousand hours on it now. But that's how it started. And the company basically told us, they said, you know, you got to use your own time on this, but you can use company computing resources, the printers and, you know, reproduction, that sort of thing. And when it came time for the trip, we got invited by Nauticos, and to the company's great credit, in my mind, they said, yep, you don't have to take vacation or a leave of absence. We'll keep you on the salary for 2 months while you're out there looking.
Wow.
So that's, it was really good. I mean, and they did that twice for us.
Yeah, very awesome. Josh Kroll has a question. If the plane is eventually found, what do you think would be an appropriate way to display and honor the story and history?
Oh, that's an excellent question. The plan, in general terms, because there's quite a few people that have invested money in this. I mean, these are expensive expeditions. Once the plane is found and we have very solid proof that we have actually found the airplane, in other words, I want to see NR 16020 on a wing piece or something like that. They'll probably spend maybe 6 months analyzing where it lays. They'll photograph everything. If there's an opening inside the plane, there are robot cameras we can send inside to photograph everything in there. So they'll study it for 6 months, and two reasons. One is to understand exactly the context of what you've got. It's an archaeological thing. And the second thing is to know enough about it to engineer the techniques for raising it through 3.5 miles of ocean without losing anything. I don't even want to see Fred Noonan's pencil fall out of that plane. So you got to get it to the surface and then immediately put it in salt water. It can't be exposed to the air. So that means an ocean-going barge with salt water in it. And I'm advocating we haul it to Hawaii, spend a few days there, then haul it to Oakland, California. And then the plane has completed the trip, although some 80-some years later. But at that point, it has to go into a conservation laboratory where they can process the metals, everything in it. And that's probably a year-long operation, but it will preserve it so that it can be then displayed and shown. And the concept there is that about 8 years worth of a traveling museum to recapture the revenue spent in finding it and preserving it will be necessary. And at that end of that 8 years, the plan is then to place it in the Smithsonian. Ultimately, that's where it must go, in the Smithsonian.
Right. Next question here is, what is your take on the belief that the Japanese captured her?
I don't think there's any solid evidence to prove it. There was this picture that the History Channel aired here a year or two ago, and it was purported that here's Earhart and Noonan on a pier in where was it, Majuro, someplace in the Marshall Islands. Anyway, everybody got all excited about it. I looked at the picture. I was a male and maybe a female with her back to the camera sitting there. It just didn't look right. And then a few days after the program aired, there was a researcher in Japan says, yeah, you know, we've got that same picture in the National Archives here. It was a survey of the Japanese held islands back then before World War II. And the date on that picture is some date in 1935, 2 years earlier. So it couldn't have been.
Yeah, gotcha. Let's see. A lot of people saying thank you. What does he think of the theory proposed in a National Geographic special that presented compelling evidence that she crashed near the Marshall Islands and was captured and killed by the Japanese? Some little same question, but yeah, any more to add to that?
Yeah, there's that got started back in the 60s, I think it was, or 68 or so, by a book by Fred Gorner. And he did a lot of research, digging up things in Saipan. You know, the theory was that she was taken to a prison, Garapan prison in Saipan, and either executed or died of dysentery or something. He never found any real evidence. There's a lot of legend and folklore surrounding things and people's memories, but I mean, if you're going to really say you found it, you've got to have solid evidence.
Right, right. Well, that is all the questions. We had Cliff said, great program. Pam and Bob, great presentation. So interesting. Thank you. Robert Graham, awesome presentation. George Schindler, Paul Kobe, Dale Holloway, outstanding. Great. This is awesome. Lloyd, thank you for your excellent answer. Good information. Thanks, Rod. So Art Lewis, great presentation. Kudos all around, Rod. That was a very interesting presentation. I had no idea that. I mean, I knew that there were expeditions that went out and tried to find it, but I had no idea, one, that you were part of some of them, and two, the amount of work and research that goes into something like that. You know?
Yeah, it's an interesting problem. I think the main thing that attracts most of us, at least the radio boys, on this is the idea that there's a mystery that a huge number of people are interested in, and there's been so much written and theories proposed that, and she was such a charismatic historical figure that if there's some way of using science and technology to solve this mystery, we'd really like to do that. And in the process of doing it, and that's, I didn't emphasize too much, but that's the educational aspect of this. Whether or not we ultimately find the airplane or not, hopefully somewhere along the line, we've inspired students to consider taking up a career and studying math, science, engineering, technology, to engage yourself in something interesting like this in your lifetime. So that's the real benefit right now until we find the airplane, and
Right.
even after we find the airplane.
Right, right. Very good.
Well, thank you very much. I really enjoyed presenting this.
Yeah, thank you. That was awesome. Very good presentation. All right, let me get back to my screen here, and very good. Anybody else have anything for the chat? If not, I'll pause here for about 15 seconds, 20 seconds, and see if there's anything. If not, we will adjourn. If somebody wants to throw in the chat to make a motion to adjourn, we'll take it. We only need one. Only one of you. If there's no more, it's like watching paint dry on this chat. No one. Oh, George Schindler, so moved. All right, we are adjourned. All right, thanks everyone. Appreciate it. We will see you November 20th for the next meeting and elections. So very good. Thank you. 73.